Testing. Oh, it works. Okay. Welcome everyone. We're thrilled to see you this evening. This is a hybrid meeting, so there's some folks on Zoom as well. And this is the second of two meetings that the municipality of North Grenville is convening in regards to a proposed draft official plan that's now been made available to the public. Of course, there has been considerable pre-consultation work that has led to this moment. And all of council was here a week ago engaging with Amy and Megan from Dillon Consulting in order to get a better understanding of the draft official plan. Tonight was really intended for members of the public and not council. So you'll see me disappear shortly, and I'll be streaming this meeting partly virtually. But really, this is your opportunity to speak directly to obviously our planning staff, as well as Megan Megan, you're the singular representative from Dillon this evening, correct? Megan Reddy. So we look forward to your comments. They're all going to be captured because it's live streamed, and a number of council colleagues will be listening online. And I would like to acknowledge Councillor Wilson is in the back, and she'll be here for a bit, but will also be leaving because really the focus is about getting all the information you need from our planning staff and Megan and Dillon Consulting, who has been heavily involved in this process. The renewal of any official plan is a very elaborate, comprehensive exercise. So it's quite common that you would bring in an external consulting team to support you in the many deliberations and reflections that one needs, in order to look to the future for any particular official plan. So we're really excited to see a number of you here this evening. It's more than we typically get during a council meeting, but I must emphasize this is not a council meeting. So I'm going to depart. Amy will be your chair, and Megan will be your lead advisor, if you will, from consulting. And I should acknowledge Amy's colleague, Kai. Thank you, Kai. Kai is a newer member of the planning team, which is why her name isn't top of mind, but thank you, Kai, for being here as well. So we appreciate, all of the conversation that Amy and Megan will lead you through tonight. Some have asked, is this the only opportunity to comment on the official plan? And Amy's been very clear that there will be several other opportunities. A renewed official plan will, in its final draft form, will come to council later this spring. We think around May, Amy, but we are very committed to hearing all of the feedback, not just in these sessions, but via email and through a number of different mechanisms. So we appreciate your attention this evening, and I will let Amy and her team get the show underway. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. So just a little bit of the format for this evening. We do have a presentation that Megan will take us through, and we'll be providing some next steps and some timelines at the end of the presentation. While we do appreciate that there might be some questions for those who are online, please utilize the chat function, and we'll capture those comments as they come in, so that way we can ask them. Or you can raise your hand during the question and answer period if you want to directly ask us a question. It is being live streamed, so we can all go back after the fact and rewatch the meeting if you want some clarification on a variety of different items. We do have our project website as well as our project email, which is op@northgrenville.on.ca, which many residents have interacted with. Which is great, which is a fantastic way to stay in touch with the project team. So a little bit of quick background, I'll turn it over to Megan for the formal presentation. We are undertaking a review and update of the municipality's official plan. The official plan is the guide to our policies of how we would like to see all the various areas of North Grenville develop. So there's policies related to residential, environmental protection, agricultural land uses, the rural area, commercial and industrial development. It really encompasses everything that you would see from a development perspective in North Grenville. Under the Planning Act, there are requirements to update the official plan every 5 years. And I do want to realize that we are outside of that 5-year process, but certainly making those efforts to create a document that is reflective of the North Grenville community and providing policies that really speak to how we want to see our community grow. Looking out to 2051, it's not a short-term planning document. And what I want to add is that even though we're looking at it now, we're saying we're setting a vision for till 2051, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to look at the document. We will be coming back in that 5-year time frame and that 5-year cycle, always reviewing the policies so we can catch up to any legislative changes or address the changing landscape within the community, as we do recognize that over time, community values and community vision do shift. So to that end, we have Megan Reddy here from Dillon Consulting, who's been assisting us with our official plan review and the update, and she will take us through her presentation, and then we will have an opportunity for questions and answers, and then afterwards we are available to talk as well with residents should you wish to engage with us. Megan?
Thank you, Mayor Peckford, and thank you, Director Martin, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone here in the room tonight and online for your time and attendance this evening on such an important matter as the official plan update. Our presentation tonight will cover the project background and how we got here to this evening, some of the significant updates to the official plan and its mapping schedules, and the next steps in the process. So North Grenville's current official plan was adopted in 2018 and is now out of date. As Director Martin mentioned, the province has requirements for the frequency with which municipalities must review and update their official plan, as well as the province updates its legislation regularly, and the official plans are required to be in conformity. So the new official plan will have that planning horizon of 2051, aligning with these recent provincial planning updates and requirements. And feeding into the OP update to date, there was pre-official plan update consultation throughout 2024 to help understand the priorities of the community, set the vision and the goals of the official plan, and recognize some of those key policy directions that we wanted to address through those discretionary categories. The official plan review, the technical work in updating the official plan and the mapping schedules was launched in summer of 2025. Next slide, please. As part of the 2024 consultation, both in-person and virtual engagement events were held. There was a project website that had an online survey questionnaire and an online map where folks could go through, complete the survey throughout the summer, and the online map was open for the lifetime of the project website, allowing folks to drop pins and comment on things that they thought were going well or things that they liked in their community, highlighting for protection or for enhancement, as well as highlight some areas of concern or areas for improvement. So being able to mark certain areas in either land or policy that they wanted to see additions or changes to. There was also several community pop-ups in person, meeting folks where they're at and providing an opportunity for casual conversation on the official plan and letting residents have the chance to ask questions to staff and the consulting team. There was advisory committee roundtables with each of the advisory committees, speaking with them about what they've seen through their advisory work to council and staff and where their priorities lay. A staff workshop to discuss some of the administrative challenges of the official plan, so how they apply it day to day in policy directions and decisions, and how we could reduce the need for official plan amendments in certain categories. We had interviews with council and 2 community open houses in person, and there were 3 virtual community roundtables, each one focusing on one of the 3 themes of live, work, and play. Since the launch of this technical update in the summer of 2025, we've had some additional consultation events, beginning with a meeting with the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. Part of the North Grenville official plan requirement is that it aligns not only with provincial legislation, but also with the county's official plan. So it's imperative that all the policy directions that we present fall in line with that upper tier legislation and mapping. We also had a public information center in person. Some more advisory committee sessions to confirm that the initial policy directions were heading in the right direction, a meeting with the Indigenous Advisory Circle, stakeholder listening sessions with key stakeholders in the community, a staff workshop, council workshop, and the project website and email have been live through the lifetime of the project. And I do want to note that last week we did have the statutory public meeting here in this very room, also hybrid, with the opportunity for folks to join online or speak in person as delegates. At this point, we're now just past the statutory public meeting process and are happy to share with the public the draft updated official plan. So we're in the process of collecting these comments on the draft and starting to do our refinements in discussions with staff and council. And we do expect to have that revised official plan presented to council in early May. Reviewing some of the changes to the official plan, we decided as a team and through feedback from the community that the OP's guiding statement is North Grenville is updating its official plan to make sure it follows new provincial rules, reflects local plans and priorities, and prepares for the community's future where we live, work, and play. The 2024 consultation brought key themes forward for inclusion in the updated official plan, including the need for more affordable and mixed housing options and typologies, a stronger sense of community and quality of life, better connections for road, trails, and transit in new developments, support for local and small businesses, and continued focus on attracting jobs and investment to bolster the local economy, protection and growth for farms in the local food system, recognizing the importance of North Grenville's agricultural network, and indoor year-round recreation spaces to improve health and quality of life for residents. These remain at the core of the discretionary policy work, and in areas where the municipality has control to influence its policy directions, we've shaped the policies in line with the public feedback received. And since the last official plan, the province has updated the provincial planning statement. In 2024, Ontario established new mandatory policy directions for some categories for the municipality's policy work. These include requiring a new planning horizon, so that's why we've updated it to 2051 to ensure long-term coordination of land use and infrastructure between the municipality, county, and the different master plans that the municipality has, such as transportation, infrastructure, and servicing. We've also updated the growth and projections to align them to county and Ministry of Finance allocations, recognizing the need to determine where the growth goes and the appropriateness for the size and density of developments. Having housing diversification, so making sure that policies facilitate a range of housing options, including permitting additional residential units as of right on eligible lots. That does mean that zoning and servicing requirements must be met. So on undersized or underserviced lots, you may not have an ARU, but where it is possible and feasible, that is now permitted. And new employment areas are required by the province. So new protection for these employment areas for manufacturing, logistics, and industrial uses, making sure that these lands are pre-designated and protected from encroaching or sensitive uses. And also having public service integration, so where appropriate, having policies to allow school and childcare facilities to exist on the same site. A few more of these mandated updates include updated mapping updates for floodplains and source water protection in line with the data gathered by the province and provided by the county, and alignment with the 2024 asset management plan to ensure that municipal infrastructure is viable over its life cycle. And there is a sustainable budget plan in place to ensure that upgrades can be procured as needed. That active transportation is promoted in order to support pedestrians and cyclists. And that there's been regulatory streamlining. So where the province has reduced powers of the municipality, we've made sure to revise and update those policies, specifically with regards to urban design, as the Planning Act has changed what municipalities can or cannot control. Some other changes to the new official plan include that new vision statement to align with the new strategic plan and guided by that public feedback. The policies have been updated to align with other municipal plans, acknowledging that since 2018, the municipality has undertaken many other studies in order to support its other works, and policies needed to be updated to ensure that they reflect the same goals, vision, and timelines. And we've simplified some policies for ease of use, recognizing that there have been some redundancies in policies and some circular policies that made it a little bit more challenging to read and determine which policy would apply to certain categories. As mentioned, one significant change to the official plan that you'll notice in the text and on the schedules is the new employment area designation. It's section 10.6 in the new document. It replaces the 2018 official plan's industrial land use with employment area, bringing North Grenville into conformity with the PPS 2024, with the goal of supporting manufacturing, research, and goods movement. It permits clusters of businesses and economic activities, as well as associated retail and office uses that support those primary activities, and also establishes a 300-meter influence area where the municipality will work to limit or mitigate impacts from new developments, again, protecting the long-term viability of these sites and local economic drivers. There's also been a change to some of the housing policies. One has been that we've officially added residential as a permitted use to Kentville campus, supporting its role as a multi-tenant community and educational hub, and recognizing the vision of the campus that the municipality and the Kentville campus organization has for its future growth. We've maintained the 25% affordable housing target as a municipality-wide goal rather than a site-by-site rule, recognizing that different affordable housing densities and permissions will vary from site to site, and included policies to utilize the community improvement plan options that municipalities have to encourage developers to meet these targets voluntarily through directing municipal funding and partnerships or matching grants for homeowners, developers, or those seeking to provide housing with an incentive to include affordable units. Visually, the new official plan schedules look quite different from 2018. However, not all of them have had changes to the data, so we do want to run through those. But the current official plan schedules in black and white with the various cross-hatching and patterns can be difficult to read. And so the new schedules have standardized layouts, templates, and follow a color schematic that is standardized and used typically across the province, making it easy to contrast and compare. The goal of this was to improve the understanding and readability and be more able to look at your site, your property, or a neighboring area and be able to determine what the underlying land use designation is and what overlays may apply to it. So updates to some of the boundaries and designations apply to Schedule A, A1, B, and B1, but we do want to note that there have been no changes to the content of Schedules B2 and B3, B2 being the wildfire hazard mapping, and B3 being the Burritts Rapids land use maps. These maps have only been brought into the new template and updated to have the colored land use designations. They have not had their boundaries adjusted. So here is an example of Schedule A. This is land use for the entirety of North Granville. We do want to note that, again, these are a draft, and we do encourage members here tonight and online to review these and provide comments on them. So this is where it shows what the underlying land use designations are. This is where you'll look to see if there's a rural land use designation. You'll find the rural policies in the official plan to see what applies to that area. And Schedule A1 is natural heritage and constraints. This focuses more on environmental protection and areas of concern, such as wellhead protection zones and those boundaries, fish nurseries, deer yards, and unevaluated, significant, and provincially significant wetlands. Schedule B is an inset map, close-up of land use in the urban serviced area. So this is where you'll see the addition of the employment area as that dark gray on the eastern side, as well as that is no longer industrial, so that will be a change. It does include the boundaries for the downtown core and a bit of a change to the areas that downtown commercial applies to, with the extension of it to the east. And we've also adjusted the Kentville campus land use designation to have a specific campus lands land use designation so that we can have specific policies to Kentville campus recognizing the uniqueness of the site. This is an additional Schedule B that has an overlay with the plan development forecasts from the employment, land use, and population study previously prepared. So this is a bit more information to help us see where we expect that intensification and development may be directed through the policies and through some of the provincial guidance. And Schedule B1 is, again, that natural heritage and constraints for that close-up area, showing, again, the wellhead protection areas, the wetlands, fish nurseries, and spawning areas. This is Schedule B2, so again, noting that there has not been changes to the areas marked on the map, but it is now brought into the standardized template. And Schedule B3 for the Burritts Rapids land use, again, brought into our new template and color schematics. So moving ahead, we are continuing to accept and review feedback on the official plan and schedules. We ask that if you have comments, you please submit them by midnight on Sunday, April 19th. It's more than a month away, but we want to give everyone enough time to review the official plan and schedules in detail, collaborate and discuss between yourselves, your neighbors, and your community groups, and be able to have a chance to speak with myself, staff, the rest of staff, and the rest of the consulting team on any areas that you have questions or comments on. We'll then take the comments and refine the official plan for approval based on this feedback received and through comments that we receive from the public, staff, council, and advisory committees. And then, fingers crossed, adopting the 2051 OP for approval in early to mid-May. So at this time, thank you everyone for your attention. We would like to open the floor, both virtually and in person. So if you do have a question or comment, we invite you to come down to the deputations table. There's a button on the right that you'll turn on to turn on your mics to make sure everyone online can hear you. And thank you very much.
And while we have our first person coming down to make comments in the theater, if there's anybody who would like to provide a comment online, we do have the chat function, or if you raise your hand, we can monitor it from there as well and acknowledge you. Thank you.
Okay. Geraldine Taylor from County Road 18. A question, simple question. Where do we find those maps? And can we get, other than digital copies, can we get printed copies of those draft maps?
Thank you for the question, Geraldine. So just for the public record, they are available online, but we can work to provide some printed copies here at the office for residents to come in and to view, understanding that sometimes online formats are not as accessible to everyone, but we can make some copies available here. I can connect with you after the meeting and
Sure.
make those arrangements.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
What they want to say. Hello, my name is Lynn Tyler. I was here last week speaking primarily about Ferguson Forest, but today I'm here not as chair of Friends of Ferguson Forest, but as an individual resident in North Grenville. And I want to talk about two things. One was the importance of an inclusive and welcoming community, and I was glad to see a reference to that in some of the materials, including the What We Heard reports and that kind of thing. I just really want to emphasize that. I know sometimes it's challenging to figure out what the relationship of that is with land use, but I think it's an important question, and it's good to see that effort being made. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the rural lands in North Grenville. I live on Oxford Station Road. Although we tend to focus a lot of attention on Kemptville, my understanding is that most folks in North Grenville actually live outside Kemptville in the rural areas. And I hope that we can give a lot of attention to that. When we moved here, there was one house surrounding our land, in the area surrounding our land. Now there are 8. And that, to me, seems excessive for what is an agricultural and rural area. It, it just doesn't make any sense to me as a land use practice. It's not preserving agricultural land. It's not preserving forest. Has a significant impact on us in terms of noise, dust, intrusions on our land, privacy, water table. Last summer was pretty serious drought. Obviously, climate change is having an enormous impact, but I don't think it helps to have excessive rural development. So I think we need to really get better at finding that balance. And I understand the financial pressures on farmers. I come from a farming family. And there was a woman who spoke at the meeting last week who talked about that. And I can understand that perhaps one severance, one acreage, but 8 seems kind of ridiculous. So some kind of process needs, and they seem to all be decisions by default. It didn't seem to be that there was a plan. So yes, we want to create a mini hamlet here. So I'm concerned that there are provincial or county or municipal regulations and practices and policies in place that would lead to that happening. If that's the plan, fine, but say so that people understand that that is the intention of North Grenville, and people can decide whether that's the kind of community they want to live in. And by the way, I just wanted to say the emphasis on protecting agricultural lands is extremely important. But equally important, possibly more important in an era of climate change, is protecting forest. We actually produce enough food. We don't have enough forests. Agriculture produces greenhouse gases, forests mitigate them. So again, that's something just to keep in mind. There's a bigger picture here that we need to think about. And I did have a question to close with. The population projections for North Grenville, do we know what might reasonably likely be the population in 2051?
Thank you for the question, Lynn, and for your comments. So I do have a copy of our growth study that I can provide to you afterwards that provides the projection out to, I think it was 2046, because when the study was done, it was back in 2023. But we do have projections as to what that future range of population could look like based on current growth trends. And I also want to highlight that the counties are doing their growth study as well, and our numbers are quite close. So perhaps I can share those documents. I will also add them to our official plan site so that it's readily available to the public. I know that it's been shared on our site in the past, but we'll try and consolidate those key pieces together. But I will follow up with an email with that for you as well.
That would be great. Thank you. And do the projections also include where in North Grenville they will be, like proportionately in Kempville, Hamlets, rural?
Thank you for the question. I believe the growth study speaks to a lot of the focus. Like, we'll still see that rural growth, but there's a lot of focus on the urban area accommodating a majority of that growth, as our policies from the province down guide development, especially more intense development, to be within our urban areas where you're more likely to have municipal services. What I do want to add as well, I just want to maybe just quickly address your rural policy piece. This is something that was flagged last week with council, is that they'd like some maybe more focus on where individuals can find those rural policies. So we'll put together a bit of a guidance document as to where those pieces are. I can speak to the policies today. We do have rural land severance policies that allow you one severance since June of 1999. And then there's additional policies in regards to strip development. I can't speak to how things were done historically as policies change over the landscape, but certainly we are collecting comments and will ensure when we come back to council that we provide some additional discourse around the conversation with rural land development, as we have a variety of different opinions, but we certainly do appreciate hearing yours this evening.
Yes, we're never short on opinions, that's for sure. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the chance to speak twice as well.
Hi, Off? Great. I feel like I'm a little late to the party because I thought last week and this week were carbon copies of each other. I didn't realize that they were two different levels of meeting. And to hear that last week. So anyway, doesn't matter. Here I am. And I actually spoke, I'm interested in knowing, I'll have to go back and watch the video, I guess, about the Ferguson Forest, the 13 acres. Have they been rescheduled along 43?
I can address some of the comments that were made last week in regards to the front lands.
Has
The
it?
designation of the lands are not proposed to change. What we are looking at in the official plan is creating what's called an intensification overlay, which is not just focused on the Ferguson Forest lands, although parts, it is encompassed on some of those lands, but it's a corridor that's stretched along Highway 43 and up parts of County Road 44. It's more of a corridor approach than it is a specific property approach.
Okay, so what does that mean in plain language?
You want to translate?
So the intensification overlay was drafted based off of the growth management study. It's an
What is an intensification overlay?
So what it is it's additional policies that apply to whatever falls under the overlay. The properties have to follow the rules for the land use designation that they are. The intensification overlay allows for higher stories if a building were to be built. It does not grant any permissions as of right to develop. Any properties or developments that are requested or applied for under that still have to follow the same process. But because County Road 43 is a major corridor, we're expecting to have services run along there and for it to be sustainably, financially, and with regards to prioritizing infrastructure, having that be the area where things would be allowed to go higher, a little bit denser, and have extra.
So the land is already paid for. We own it, the municipality. So you were using the language of to pay for itself? I don't understand.
For infrastructure. So the cost to run additional servicing, to upgrade servicing.
It's fields.
But sorry, I'm speaking to the intensification overlay as a whole.
So I'm speaking to the 13 acres that run along 43 that are currently part of what the locals would call Ferguson Forest Center.
Mhm.
You know, so those, I think we all know the 43, the 13 acres. It was up. So there was a land disposition that was attempted a couple of years ago. And I got a whole bunch of signatures, like about 1,000, that said that we didn't want anything to happen to those 13 acres. They're part of our cultural heritage. And I'm wondering if the word cultural heritage has been included in this municipal plan with regards to those 13 acres, since we did have such an outpouring from the community that said that they did not want anything to happen to those 13 acres that are irrigated lands as well, might I add?
There are cultural heritage policies in the official plan that do speak to the natural heritage. At this time, there is nothing planned for those acres in Ferguson Forest Center on the north side of 43. The OP has not decided anything.
So we're not protecting them using the words cultural heritage, that the Ferguson Forest Center lands are part of our cultural heritage that were held in trust during the amalgamation. That's part of our history here in Kemptville. Was that included?
They are recognized in the official plan, yes.
So are those 13 acres then being protected as cultural heritage and then being used appropriately? So, you know, like an urban park or maintaining our forestries to this lady's, like, because that is part of our cultural heritage here in Kemptville and Merrickville and, or excuse me, Burns Rapids, Oxford. When it was amalgamated, those lands were preserved under the held in trust.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
just wondering if that's been included.
I'm not sure if I understand the question, because at this time, there's nothing planned for the area.
Mm-hmm.
There's no planned development. There's no planned changes.
But are they protected?
Currently, the Ferguson Forest Center lands remain the same as they are now.
So we're redeveloping the plan, and we're in a rapid growth situation here in North Grenville. And what the land disposition brought out was an overwhelming want from the community to preserve certain areas of our cultural heritage. And those lands, those 13 acres, during the deposition, it was presented that they were strongly wanted to be protected, to be used in the future, you know, such as in New York City when they put in the giant Central Park, it was a swampland 100 years ago, and now look, it's a tourist attraction. So for agro-tourism and those things, that's what was asked to be held with those lands. And was that taken into consideration during this process?
I'll take the question. In regards to, we have not developed any additional specific policies for the Ferguson Forest lands that front along County Road 43, other than the intensification layer, which again was explained by Ms. Reddy. In regards to cultural heritage and policies, those policies exist as a broader policy within the document. It's not a specific land use designation. We have not changed the land use designation of the Ferguson Forest Center. I think what you're kind of getting at, and please correct me, I don't want to put to misrepresent what you're trying to say, is that you're asking if there's some additional policies that could be placed upon the Ferguson Forest Center lands that maybe are a little more specific as to the value in which they hold in the community. Because right now, the policy area that applies would be the underlying land use designation, which I believe is agriculture.
Yeah.
So to that end, when we look at it from a policy perspective, we go to the agricultural land use policies, but there's nothing specific for the Ferguson Forest lands.
But now we've airdropped in this intensification layer, which is quite confusing instead of just leaving it as agricultural. And I mean, if we can put an intensification layer on there, can't we put a cultural heritage layer on there too?
So in regards to the cultural heritage layer, I mean, the cultural heritage policies are within the official plan, and they are, when a development application for any property comes forward, we would have regard for such policies. But specifically speaking on those additional policies or any kind of consideration around just the FFC lands themselves and whether we create what I call the special policy area, similar to the campus. Like, I know that we have special entities in our community. The campus is one, and in the Ferguson Forest Center is another area. That could be something that we could provide some consideration around and collecting comment and feedback tonight.
Well, we collected that when the deputation went through in 2024 at the same time as the initial plan was being drafted. Because according to here, the pre-official plan consultation priorities, so this started, so the deputation fell within that time frame. So I'm asking, was the deputation, this one, applied to those 13 acres as per the will of the community?
At this time, there have been no specific policies developed for the Ferguson Forest Center lands, but it's certainly something that we can flag with the consultant for further review based on the information.
Because I did notice from and I will say, it's really hard to read those maps online. It looks like those 13 acres have been separated out from the rest, which is odd. If you weren't going to do anything with it, they would just be same color as the rest of the land. So that is kind of a red flag for me that there might be movement on those 13 acres. And now you're saying that there's an extra layer being put in there. Kind of feels like a bit of a shell game here, to be honest.
We thank you for your comments. As mentioned, we did apply a corridor approach to the overlay. It's not intended to say specifically there's going to be development here. These lands are going to.
So I'm asking you why you would do that when we have 1,000 signatures and an entire deputation, as well as referencing out of our own. And I believe that the existing plan is still in effect until 2030. According to the book that I have, isn't it? And it says in here, in anticipating the pressures for growth, careful planning and decision-making will ensure that unique and desirable characteristics of the municipality are not lost in order to accommodate this growth. And that's under 2.2.2 environmental resources. Key impacts from any new or expanding non-agricultural uses on surrounding agricultural operations and lands should be mitigated to the greatest extent feasible. The creation of non-farm residential lots in the agricultural designation shall be prohibited. That's in section 3 of the plan that we're still currently under. So I'm wondering, since that was referenced, there was a deputation, there's been signatures, which is all hard, you know. I'm wondering why that wasn't applied to the 13 acres now at this point. Like, why do we have to do a do-over when the community has spoken and provide evidence that they want that acreage to be protected and remain as part of the whole of the Ferguson Forest Center as a result of being part of our cultural heritage and being held in trust at the point of amalgamation?
I want to be clear that the lands have not been subdivided or severed off from the entirety of the FFC. They are still part of the overall land, and council has not made any decisions in regard to those lands. At this time, we are looking at our official plan policies, and we have heard your comments in regards to those concerns about the community that raised as part of the discussion that happened back in 2024 when the question was first raised. So to that end, we are documenting and taking into consideration the comments that are being provided
So-
by the public.
Yeah.
And we will provide a response to council, and perhaps we could look at whether or not there is merit in looking at specific policies for the Ferguson Forest lands in that regard as to the overall vision and purpose and intent of those lands.
What I don't understand is how much evidence do you need that people want those 13 acres to be held in trust as they were originally designed to be? With 1,000 signatures on a petition, multiple delegations here, what does the community have to do in order to ensure? Because you keep saying that we're reflecting on it. Well, 1,000, like in a survey, 1,000 or a petition, 1,000 people is a big turnout. So like these are a lot of hoops that we're still jumping through in order to have those 13 acres. It's not even to just keep them together. Just say, no, they're fine. We respect what the public wanted. So that's what I don't understand in the process. The process keeps saying, well, we'll think about it some more. Well, what? I thought this was done and dusted.
I just want to be clear that the lands are not being subdivided, the lands are not being
We
separated.
put an overlay on those lands. I don't know what that overlay really means other than intensification. And we're saying about, which makes no sense to me if it's protected land and it's being held in trust. I don't understand what that layer is.
At the end of the day, it's an additional policy consideration for any development that comes forward in that corridor where that overlay exists.
Right.
It doesn't establish the right for development per se.
It doesn't protect it though, does it?
But the underlying land use, which is currently agriculture and is not slated to change within our current official plan, is what provides those policies. Those policies aren't slated to change as per our document today.
But it doesn't protect it. And that's what I'm saying is how many times do we have to put our eyeballs on this? And how many times do I have to show up? And how many times do I have to get another petition going in order for everybody to just go, hey, you know what? The town doesn't want that land to move. They want it to be a forest. They want it to be a garden. They want it to be whatever is in keeping with the agricultural content of those lands. That's it. It's 13 acres. And yet here we are again. How many times do we have to go to bat before the consideration is done and dusted? And you hear, because this means if it's a game of silly bugger, because there's no end, you know? So I don't understand. I get that there's nothing happening to it right now and but then, you know, somebody comes in and, well, you know, we got this extra layer here now that says maybe. That's the part that hurts and people don't like. Anyway, take that into consideration, and I look forward to the next iteration of this.
Hi, I'm Lynn Pibamase from Whitney Road. Thank you. I did email about that 13 acres to the council as well. I had brought up the subject last week about the 30-meter setback for the provincially significant wetlands. And I had also emailed the planning department because I realized also the snapping turtles, besides the blanding turtles, are a species at risk, and they live in all of our provincially significant wetlands. And Amy did reply to me very promptly. Thank you very much, Amy. You had said, I wanted to note that the setback requirements, excuse me, a little bit nervous, for the provincially significant wetlands were legislatively modified by the province to 30 meters, where it had previously been 120 meters, which is true. But I wanted to look into it further because I realized when I looked at the Schedule A, showing our provincially significant wetlands, they are also the headwaters of all the creeks that flow into the Rideau, the Kemple Creek in the South Nation. The one on Whitney Road actually is the headwaters for Barnes Creek, which goes right through Kemple. So I read further into the our official plan and got into the water quality and quantity. So 6.28 and 6.27, I was reading about the headwaters, the aquifers. This is all protecting the water. And I came across where the municipality participated in the development of the Mississippi River Source Water Protection Report. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. I'd like to see what that has to say. And when I looked at it, it had a section for the provincial policy. The provincial planning statement of 2024, which was updating to the 30 meters from the 120 meters, requires protection of significant wetlands, prohibits development or interference with the boundaries of a provincially significant wetland. Typically, new development is not recommended within 30 meters. Now, they use the word typically. I'm kind of going, well, they're not saying that's what it is. So I went and I dug a bit further, and then it directs you to the Natural Heritage Reference Manual, which is for planners to write out official plans and guidelines and whatever. And in there, it says that those are minimum standards. So we could put 120 meter setback on the provincially significant wetlands, which I think we should, because they are full of all of our species at risk. They are also the headwaters of all the fresh water that we have in our lovely community. It's also the filtration system that fills up the aquifers with fresh water. So I think we should have the 120 meter setback on all of the provincially significant wetlands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comment. I do have a note here to look into the OP policies. And thank you again for the email and speaking last week. So that has been flagged in the comment response matrix and is something that we have opened back up for reinvestigation. Thanks.
I figured red's good. Okay. Red is on. Inga Van Gemeren from Birch Rapids. I wanted just to make sure, I don't know what I want. I just know what needs to kind of start to happen. For a little bit of background, we're having some conversations with the planning organization about potential development on a plot of land within the hamlet boundary. And we've gone back several times to a section in the official plan, section 8.3, which was specifically put in there in an attempt to solidify the desire for us to remain rural, for us to keep the sight lines, for us to be a small community. And that there was a lot of work done at that time, and it's a few iterations of the OP ago. It's come to our attention through the discussions with the planning group that that section may not have the teeth and the details and the definition that we expected and intended it to have. So we need to review that and understand it, because if it's not serving both parties equally, meaning we're not all on the same page as to what those words mean and what they represent, we need to figure out how to get there. So I ask then that we're able to have a separate conversation to kind of dig into the details a little bit and understand what are the right mechanisms to make sure that the vision statement that is in fact captured in that section of the official plan can come to life and can be protected and enabled with ongoing planning conversations.
Thank you for your comment. I just want to make sure I noted it correctly. It's section 8.3.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hello, my name is Marie Therese Butsinos from Oxford Mills. I have two questions. The first one is we talk a lot about growth in this community, but our water resources and land resources are finite. So do we have a set limit as to what we want to see in this community? Is there a limit to what growth we envision? I hope there is, because with climate change complicating things and maybe less precipitation, more drought, more heat will affect the water tables, water resources. Is that being taken into consideration with respect to what our area can sustainably allow to have, to be with a good life? So yeah, my concerns are what will be sustainable here and not just what will be a tax revenue for the municipality. So I'll wait till I get the answer to that before asking the second question.
Thank you for the question. So we don't have any specific policies in the official plan that cap growth, but a lot of the policies do work hand in hand to manage that kind of sustainable growth as you talked about. So you saw on the maps how there are some wellhead protection areas. So for municipal wells and those water sources, there are concerns and considerations regarding what type of developments, what size, making sure that they're not drawing too much water from those areas. In the rural areas, things like the consent policies, there's minimum lot sizes, so you don't have too many new places pop up with wells too close together that are drawing from all the water at the same time. So making sure that there's enough area to support those, that they're spread out. That is why we also have in the growth management study looking at areas that already have available servicing. So some of those areas in the Countville area that are not yet at capacity, asking that if residents or developers are to build somewhere or move somewhere, it be in those areas to capitalize on the fact that we already have room available before we start growing out, spreading out, and requiring more resources. And I'll pass to Amy for any additions.
Thank you, Megan. I also want to add that, like, especially when it comes to like our growth, the policy direction from the province, which then feeds down to our documents, are to where we can focus that growth and intensification, as Megan had alluded, where we have those pre-existing municipal services where you can support maybe higher densities. So you have more people maybe living on a smaller footprint, but you're not, it's moving away from that, maybe the standard single family dwelling sprawl that we see as typical for, you know, development, especially when you look to areas around the GTA. And certainly we do have that style of development here, but we are looking at our policies where we can create more of those mixed uses to allow for people to live, work, and play within a smaller footprint without having to travel greater distances, creating other forms of sustainability. So the official plan moves to start to incorporate more of those policies and how we consider those a variety of maybe some land uses mixed in together, so that we're not having the bulk of our developments occur on maybe private services in the rural area.
So as of yet, we don't have any limits set on growth. Not now, not for the future. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. So the municipality does not have the ability to cap its population and have a fixed number at which there's no more residents allowed to move there. So the way that the municipality manages it is through those growth and development policies, either directing development in areas with available land or restricting development in areas where it's undesired. I do also want to note that outside of the official plan exercise, the municipality does work with conservation authorities in the area. So they are a separate entity and they do water budgets and analysis. So part of what they do is look at the available amount of water and water quality, assess for forecasting what that looks like, and help guide things like our climate change policies, because they are the ones with the ear to the ground and doing much of the monitoring on that. So they also feed into this, but they don't necessarily have a section in the OP dedicated to that.
My second question is with respect to our areas of forest that are publicly owned, such as Ferguson, Limerick, the campus lands. So the forests and the agricultural lands that are publicly owned presently are not protected and against future development. With the pressure, the growth pressures that we are seeing in this municipality, I think it would be a good idea for those lands to be protected for a lot of different reasons. And that's something that I know has been suggested during the last strategic plan. It was suggested that these lands be protected under a trust such as the Ontario Farmland Trust. And it was again suggested in your consultations in the fall that these lands that are very vulnerable to development be protected so that we know that we're not going to have to fight for that protection over and over again and possibly lose that fight. And I haven't seen that in the documents, being reflected in the documents. And I'm asking the same question that was asked earlier. What is it going to take for our comments to make it into the final documents? Who decides what goes into those final documents?
Thank you for the question and the comment on that. With regards to the official plan, the OP can't set out the land being in a trust. That would be a separate process that has to do with land ownership and responsibility, which the official plan does not cover. It doesn't dictate who owns what. But in the official plan, with the Ferguson Forest Centre lands having the designation of agriculture, the agriculture designation is quite restrictive in not allowing commercial development, large-scale residential development for the Ferguson Forest Centre lands to have that be built on them. It would be a large-scale official plan amendment, which would actually mean bringing open the official plan and modifying that. It's a very large exercise and would require a high-scale planning justification for that. There would need to be a rationale provided and lots of studies. It's not anticipated that that happen. So keeping them as agriculture means that the only permitted uses on them are what we are seeing now, like the agricultural, like the tree nursery that falls within the agricultural use, but they do not have permissions on them for that. Speaking to the ownership, I think that's something where I'll pass to Amy, because that would be a conversation that is unfortunately outside of my scope on the project, but I have noted this. Thank you.
The land trust conversation and putting municipal lands into a land trust would be a council decision. Again, it's outside of our official plan process itself, but it's certainly something as we are gathering comments and they are being brought forward that we can pass along up to our senior leadership team and provide them that this is what we've heard during our process. and provide that feedback to council through our chief administrative officer.
Earlier, I heard that the campus lands were a special case. What does that mean?
I'll answer first and then Megan can add on. Over time, the Kemptville campus lands have evolved. I mean, originally starting as the Guelph campus with the agricultural school, and then with the municipality taking them over. There's a variety of multi-tenant uses that happen on there. There's agricultural production at the south towards Bedell. We do have the forestry, the sugar bush. We have multiple institutions there, including schools. So the land use policies itself that currently exist don't really speak to the uniqueness of the Kemptville campus and the variety of uses that happen there. So what we're looking at is creating some specific policies that more so align with how the campus functions and how it's evolved over time, and to give them some flexibility, especially where where the existing buildings are, as they see a variety of like how can we repurpose some of these buildings for new tenants, ensuring that we have that ability to allow for kind of that innovation and creativity to happen on the campus. And we also do recognize that there have been a few projects that have happened over time, including the Habitat for Humanity project, which is just on Concession Road, as well as Bell Hall, where we're now looking at, there's some residential uses kind of happening in adjacent too. So still allowing for maybe some of that to meaningfully happen. But that's kind of what we mean by like special policies, just recognizing that the campus itself is unique and it might not fit like one specific land use designation, where like your residential designation permits residential uses, your commercial would have policies for commercial uses. The campus kind of has a little bit of everything in some way, and how it's evolved over time. So just recognizing kind of that unique character of that area. I don't know, Megan, if you had anything else to add.
Thanks, Amy. It's exactly it. So rather than looking at the campus having to put a bunch of different blocks of color on it in a patchwork pattern to recognize the different uses, it now just has one large mixed use designation, so that the campus can continue to adapt without needing to go through an official plan amendment anytime they want to change the use of a building or shift the area that they're using for one space or another. It just gives them that flexibility and be able to be proactive rather than the municipality having to be reactive.
What does that mean with respect to the farmlands and the forest lands that belong to the campus?
Those are still planned as is. They're still kept in the designation, so it's still a permitted use. The change to allow residential on Kemptville campus was with respect to Bell Hall and the fact that there's quite a few buildings already there that they're looking for potentials for adaptive reuse. So to maintain the outer shell of the building without needing to tear it down and build a new one, but without having residential be permitted in the official plan. Every single request for one of those buildings to be reused would have to undertake a planning process, application, wait for decisions. So this is to allow that. Not expecting to have the growth in the agricultural area at this time. It's not proposed and not being modified.
So does it mean it could be?
I'll pass that to Amy because I don't know of potential future plans for the campus.
So in regards to the campus, I'm not going to tie anyone's hands or what the future of those lands could be. But those are discussions that, like I'll take Bell Hall, for example. Like it can't, we have a building that's been sitting vacant and there's been discussion as to what would the best end use life be of that building. We undertook a feasibility study, which said, it looked at what was a former dormitory. Converting the building into like affordable apartments is a feasible use. The cost to convert it to a different use because of a variety of different reasons would be uneconomical. So from that perspective, the official plan document is not a static document. It is dynamic in that we do get requests to amend it. Our council can ask us to amend the official plan at any time with direction as to what they'd like to see. It's hard to say that this is forever going to be the policy on the property as things do change, which is why we do update the plan. So I don't want to make any firm commitments that like nothing at all is absolutely never going to happen. But I think it's something that, and I don't want to speak for the campus board, but what is the overall vision for those campus lands and its long term and how it's engaged with and interacted with. So I think from our perspective, sorry, I don't think, I know from our perspective, is we want to ensure that we're creating policies that reflect the history of the campus, what currently exists, but also recognizes that uniqueness and how it's evolved over time, including some of those pieces that we discussed.
The intent for those farmlands has been for agriculture, for research, and for sustainable agriculture projects. And it's been mentioned several times that those lands should be put in a trust and should be protected from development. And I would like to see that reflected.
Okay, thank you for the comment. I will pass that comment along up to our senior leadership team, as again, the land trust piece is not an official plan process. It's a separate process outside of our policy document.
It's a vision of having those lands protected in a way that will protect them indefinitely.
Okay, thank you.
And it's part of a vision. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sarah Walsh. I live on Oxford Street East in town. I work for the Canada Foundation for Innovation, which funds research infrastructure and spaces and people in colleges and universities across the country. I'm also a member of the board of directors for Ferguson Forest Center, or sorry, the Friends of Ferguson Forest Center. I would like to just first reiterate the comments that we've already heard tonight, and I understand last week about concerns about the intensification overlay. As we see increased densification in the community and in the plans for future growth, it's more important than ever to protect the green spaces that we do have in the community and to protect those spaces for the community to really enjoy. For folks that might not have backyards, if they're living in multi-unit buildings, to have a space where they can go and have a picnic or have a time with their family, and to have that space really visible to the community is important. I think that we can do better to showcase the jewel that Ferguson Forest is, and having that space right along the main road is really important to do that, to show that it's the benefit that it has, not just to residents in the community, but to people who are new, to visitors that might not know all the amazing things that it has. So I really thank you for your willingness to make recommendations to council on this and to look at developing policies to ensure the continued protection of the Ferguson Forest lands. Another point that I want to bring up is I know that it's really become a slogan kind of throughout the plan and documents about live, work, and visit. But I feel what's really missing from that, or missing from the plan, is the focus on studying and learning and training the next generation. In the official plan, there are mentions about focus on agricultural research, entrepreneurship, and increased industrial activity. But to be able to create that, then we really need to have a plan for how to do that, how to make it a reality. I would encourage the municipality to look at technology access centers, which is a model that came primarily out of Quebec, the CCTTs. They're specialized applied college research centers that provide services to industry for fees. In areas that these are located, and they often are located in more rural or less populated areas, you see spin-offs, you see industry congregate because you've created the environment where this is possible with highly qualified personnel, equipment, and a focus on innovation. I hesitate to bring up the P word in terms of prison, but I will just briefly. If this is still in the municipality's plans for the future, to ensure that North Grenville really gets benefits from this and not just the burden, then we need to ensure that our young people can access the skilled jobs that it will offer. And having, for example, a satellite site for a college where young people can get trained to be nurses or other health professionals, then that can really help to make sure that we do get those benefits. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. As you're speaking more in regards to the education piece, I'm already thinking ways in which we can identify not just the campus lands, which has kind of more become a bit of an educational hub in some ways, but some of our land use designation policies where that might fit well. So thank you for those insights and your other comments as well.
I had trouble with this last week, so it's working. Thank you for holding the meeting tonight. I also brought my glasses. I have a few more things to add to what I was going to talk about, which is the campus lands. The first is the FFC, to the points already made. Take off the intensification. It's that simple. Then nobody has to worry about it. Label it something beautiful. The economic development zone is on wetlands. How does that work? Curious, just how does that work?
Thank you for the question. With regards to the land use designations, the land having a certain designation does not preclude it from also being responsible to meet the requirements of the wetland protection policies.
Okay.
The maps show the underlying designation on the parcel fabric. It doesn't have the overlay of the wetlands on top of it, but if you were to stack them on top of each other and make that transparent, the land with the economic land use designation and the wetlands on top of it, that area would not be permitted for development within the wetland spot, and they are subject to the buffer. They're shown on separate schedules, but they do still apply.
Can you put the map up and zero in? And for anyone who wants maps, just go to Staples and print off an 11 by 17. It's way easier to look without straining your eyes. I need the economic zone, whatever that map is. It's that coloration, that gray, that one, the one that has the gray and.
4, I think. 2 before.
Thank you.
One of
That,
them.
yeah, that one. So go back, and then if you can go, sorry, if you're lucky, just up and down a little. Sorry. If you could go down just a little, then we can see just above it. No, the other way, sorry, yeah. That's unevaluated wetland up above in the rural and also going into the gray. What happens there? So if I misunderstand, please tell me, but I believe the developer is now the one who determines the setbacks. Is that true? Is it the municipality and the OP, or is it
So
not?
thank you for the question, Chris. So in regards to the unevaluated wetlands, there's specific policies within the official plan where there is an unevaluated wetland identified, it's required to be studied. So we study it to understand what is there, what is the nature of it,
Okay.
what needs to be protected, and are there setbacks required? It would also look at, is there provincial significance based on a set of guidelines established by the ministry, which is it's called the OES, the Ontario Wetland Evaluation System.
So you would do an environmental assessment then?
Absolutely, yeah. And that would
Okay.
be one of the requirements for that land being developed, is that having that layer there to say there's the potential for an unevaluated wetland based on land characteristics or based on mapping that we may have perceived from the Ministry of Environment or Natural Resources.
Okay.
It requires additional study to actually understand what is there. And then we would require the developer to provide an environmental impact study that specifically looks at it and provide recommendations around it.
So the developer does the environmental assessment then? It
They
used to
com-
be the municipality, right, that would do that? Or has it always been the developer?
So the developer hires a qualified professional to undertake the study,
Ah.
and then we hire our own qualified professional to
Okay.
peer review it. So our qualified professional would look at the report and the data and provide comment back
Okay.
in regards to that. So that peer review is our way of checking in to see, okay, are they saying, like basically fact checking what they're saying provide us with comment. We go
Yeah.
back and forth a few times. And then oftentimes, especially if there is an evaluated piece there, or there's like a natural feature that needs to be protected, there'll be recommendations around that, including sometimes it's zoning, that it be zoned into like an environmental protection area and provide some setback requirements. And then often with development, it's recommendations during construction as to what like things should be in measure in regards to like silt fencing and more technical matters.
Okay.
If I may add as well, it's also required at the provincial level and in the OP that as the province continues to evaluate wetlands and provide new data, that be incorporated into the official plan through an official plan amendment. So should the province go out and determine that some of these are provincially significant wetlands, they would be brought through and then shown on the schedules.
Okay. I will admit I don't have a lot of faith in the province with respect to natural features, actually zero, but okay, point taken. That's the third thing. Growth. And you can correct me, obviously, I might be wrong, but I thought that the provincial policy statement was intended primarily to densify urban first and then slowly ease its way into surrounding areas. That would be Ottawa, I guess. What does that mean for our growth projections? I don't think Ottawa's full or the surrounding areas, but it seems to me as though there's a lot of language that we need growth, that we have growth, that we're looking forward to growth, that growth is great. Curious about what the provincial policy statement really means. Because how far are we from Ottawa? 70 kilometers? And across the river, yeah, I'm talking about the urban though, like the urban space of Ottawa. So how do you manage that? Because isn't it densification urban first?
I'll take a crack at answering the question, and then Megan can supplement as well. In regards to the kind of that urban first, you are correct in that the policies state, focus your growth within your developed areas where your municipal services.
Sorry, Amy, I mean urban as in urban cities already. I don't mean urban as in rural urban or urban rural. I mean, the policy, as I understood it, was that densification was to occur in urban centers first and then make its way outward as needed. But here, it seems that there's been a jump. I know that, development is fine because it brings in people into the community, et cetera. This isn't really an answerable thing, I think. I think it's something to consider for the council and for planners about how much growth is needed here and how fast, given how many natural features we have, and given whatever growth projections might be happening or might change over the next 5 to 10 years, and that would be your amendments, et cetera. But I had thought that it was urban city first, not North Grenville or, Brockville, I guess would be a city. But, like in that kind of strategic way of looking at things, we hear a lot about growth all the time. We do not hear a lot about how to support that growth within our own streets and our own rural areas. So I'm concerned. A lot of people are concerned about this.
To respond to kind of that urban as being the city of Ottawa and then us being kind of maybe that rural area, and I'm sorry if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, Chris, is more so that the provincial planning statement doesn't contemplate it based on this regional city over here and then the rest of the area. We apply the policies at the municipal level. So in our context, urban is Kemptville, as it's our area where the we have our municipal services, right, where we can support more density and more growth without having to necessarily, expand out kind of in that suburban sprawl piece and way in which you develop in the country because you have septic systems and you need more land. But to that end, my understanding of the planning statement is that it's not meant to differentiate when it says urban areas as the large cities, and then everything else outside of it is not considered urban. It more so provides the urban context, and it talks about municipal servicing. So that's where we start to define urban settlement areas, which the town of Kemptville is. And then when you look at our more rural area, Burns Rapids, Oxford Mills, Bishop Mills, those are our rural settlement areas because, again, prehistoric development where you have more houses together, which we allow for some development, but not as dense as what we would in the urban in the urban area per se. I do want to just speak to the growth study. We do evaluate those every 5 years based on our census cycles. So it's not as if we're like we're one and done. We do review that every 5 years as we get that data, and we do update our official plan every 5 years, recognizing we're a little out from that timeline from 2018. But these are not short processes either, as we've been in discussion since 2024 with the community in regards to just North Grenville and having these conversations about growth and those perspectives. So what I do want to say is that like we are continually always monitoring, what those patterns look like, where are those pressures coming from, and then looking at our policies and our documents to say, okay, like here's what's projected. We do have certain things that are mandated by the province that you have to accommodate, a certain amount of years worth of housing based on your growth projections. And that's something that we do contemplate within the official plan, and we do plan for. You want to, like, from my perspective, you want to ensure that as you do have those growth pressures, that you have ways in which you can address it, and finding those appropriate areas in which you want to direct and guide growth, so that you're not encroaching upon the rural resources, which do include natural heritage resources and provincially significant wetlands, farmlands. So we're trying to find that balance with the official plan where like you can still have meaningful growth, but then you can still protect those resources that also have meaning to our cultural heritage as well.
Okay, thanks. The Kemptville campus, is there a really good map of that you wouldn't mind focusing in on? Yeah, that would work.
The only downside is that some of the lands are in the urban area and some are not. So this is the urban area map. I just wanted to classify that.
Yeah, I do know that the urban boundary got changed when the Catholic school built on concession recently, and that lands, I believe, were switched to not exactly equal, but the soccer fields behind the proposed sports dome were added as a switch. So 10 acres of agriculture got switched with roughly 10 acres of, I guess, park. Is that what the soccer field is? In behind the proposed sports dome. So that urban change, I don't know if that's reflected on there, but that happened. The campus. So on page 81 of this beautiful document that you drafted, it says that notwithstanding the above permitted uses, describes the designated rural, parts 26, 27, 28, concession 4, blah, 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 located on Schedule B and known as the Kemptville campus or campus lands, may be used as a multi-tenant educational community hub, focusing on the 4 pillars of education and training, health and wellness, economic development. What is the 4th?
I do see on my version that the 4th is additional housing. I'm not
Thanks.
sure why that's missing from your version, but we can double check the one online and see if it's just addition error.
Okay. Yeah, I took this from online.
Okay.
So during the lifetime of this plan, the municipality will undertake an exercise to develop a special policy area for Kemptville campus with community-led policies. The campus, as others have noted, has cultural heritage buildings. A lot of the emphasis of the campus lands is on the built environment. It has an unevaluated wetland. It has the provincial wetland down on the other side of Bedell, which you can't quite see on that map. It has a active sugar bush that has, I think it offsets 6 tractors or so, I was told recently. Thank you. Maybe zoom in. I learned today that the OLT land tribunal regarding the Lear was appealed. So it is now agricultural lands for the foreseeable future. I am wondering about land use because, if I can go back in time on this document, the uses of areas designated agriculture, so that is now agriculture, not rural lands, because rural lands would have been applied after the Lear process at county, whenever that was, January 22nd, right? So now we're back to agriculture. Am I right that that is the case under an OLT?
I'll do my best to clarify as it is a county process.
Yeah.
There have been appeals that have been received to the plan,
Okay.
some from individual property owners is my understanding,
Yeah.
as well as from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Yes.
I don't have all of the details again because it's held at the counties.
No, but does it
But
revert, Amy? Does it
it-
revert now to agriculture?
So currently, the plan, like the county's official plan that's in place is what's in place. None of the schedules have changed until the
Okay.
appeal is settled by the Ontario Land Tribunal and
Right.
that decision becomes available. So as of right now, yes, there's still agriculture, but I can't speak to whether or not
Yeah,
through
okay.
that appeal process, if they would go rural or if they would stay agriculture. I don't know the nature of the ministry's appeal.
Okay. So I learned that the use of agriculture is supposed to use an agricultural system approach, right? Based on provincial guidance. So continuous agricultural land base support the long-term prosperity of an agri-food network. The campus master plan outlined this very clearly. Personally, I no longer know who's in charge of the campus, if it's the board with arm's length municipality, if it's public, if it's municipal public, or what it is. Some clarity would be greatly appreciated in this OP because it's very, very confusing because decisions seem to be made and I actually don't know who's making them, who's announcing things, who's deciding things. Ideally, it would be the board. So protect, maintain, and improve the prime agricultural areas for future generations. So this is in accordance with this Canadian land inventory mapping, potential for agricultural production, areas demonstrating concentration of farming actively. As far as I know, it's class 2 soil, which is the same as the Ferguson Forest. There's, I think, a pocket of 5, which is at the very end of it. So theoretically, it is prime ag. And yet, a sports dome is proposed to be put on 10 acres of that land, or however many lands or acres it's going to be. Who knows? We have no feedback from the municipality. Promote farm practices which encourage the conservation of surface and groundwater resources, aquatic habitat, woodlands, wetlands, wildlife habitat, and other natural features where such practices do not impose undue limitations on the farming community. Well, there's a sugar bush. There's an unevaluated and evaluated wetland. There's wildlife habitat and natural features. I would call it a corridor myself, quite a significant one. Discourage uses which are not supportive of agriculture from locating in areas designated for agricultural purposes. I'm sure you know this back and forth, Amy, and same with you, Megan. So I am wondering about the use of the official plan to some extent when it's not super clear. What are these lands for? If the language can be changed and maneuvered easily, then what is its use? I mean, there's broad uses, obviously, but when things are quite important to a smaller community, like Ferguson Forest, Limerick Forest, campus lands, outside of the built environment, this becomes really important. And from what I understand and from what I've read, the idea about the use of that those agricultural fields started to evolve around 2024 while the LEAR was in process, while it was still and is still agricultural land. In other words, there's some non-transparency going on here, and it's not okay. And it's same with the Ferguson Forest. If you put an overlay on a chunk of land and you leave it there over the horizon of something from, whenever this gets adopted to 2051, successive councils can do whatever they want. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Just confirming that we don't, sorry, Ms. Papazios, you want to come down and speak again? I don't see anything in the chat in regards to any comments or questions. I am doing my best to monitor it with the screen in front, so.
Hi. So I just have a quick question in agreement with the overlay removal. If it's easy to put on, it's easy to take off. So with regards to the aquifers, the Oxford aquifer in specifically, I did a deputation earlier this year with regards to the drawdown on the Oxford aquifer and how we haven't got any information on what the the development impact is on the very fragile Oxford aquifer. And I used a comparison of Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo. I used to live there, and they also draw off of aquifers. And I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but the region of Waterloo has just stopped development. And citing water capacity concerns, although there's no immediate shortages for residents, officials said there wouldn't be enough water to support the 1 million residents, a population the region is expected to reach by 2051. So within this plan, and using them as an example, what is our forecasted growth within this plan for 2051? I know that we've far surpassed the existing municipal plan forecasted growth, which I believe was, well, I have it, but you can probably tell me, Amy. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. In regards to our forecasted growth, without having the growth study in front of me, like it projects out into the, I want to say about 32,000, but again, don't hold me on numbers. I can get those specific facts for you through our growth study out to, I want to say 2046, because that's what it was, that again, when we did the study, it was a few years ago, and that was the time horizon. We do have our source water protection plan, which speaks to our various aquifers and studied those aquifers. I'm just curious with the Kitchener-Waterloo, because I'm acutely aware of their constraints, because they've had to put some limitations on development right now.
They put a full stop on.
Yeah, because they have no, I believe water supply to support.
They're unsure of the stability of the drawdown as a result of the development forecast.
And I mean, you have more awareness on the subject than I do. Is it on the municipal system itself, or is it on?
They draw from aquifers.
But for like the municipal, municipal system, or is it like
Manheim service area?
Okay, so it's in a service area that is, it's like they would have a municipal well that services a larger area.
Right, like a Nepean well. And now, having said that, the Oxford aquifer, so any wells outside of the municipality who aren't on town water draw from the Oxford aquifer. So we can all have individual wells, but they all draw from the Oxford aquifer. So each well doesn't come from just underneath our houses. It draws from the Oxford aquifer. Town water draws from the Nepean aquifer, quite large. So as we build out, and using Waterloo as an example, going beyond our town lines, physical lines of water, we are all going to be drawing off of the Oxford aquifer. What have we in the plan? How are we figuring out what that drawdown is going to be collectively? The more mini houses we put in, and the more houses, and it's nothing against mini houses, it's nothing against housing, it's to ensure the stability of the Oxford aquifer and the drawdown for each of these homes. The collective drawdown.
Yeah, so I'll answer first, and if Ms. Reddy has some additional comments to add. We do have policies where we have development applications. So under the, I'll speak to development applications under planning, because it's, like a zone, if we have, like, say, a plan of subdivision or even a severance, we have the ability where we can ask for a servicing study. So the servicing study would look at what water is available in the area and what is required to support that development. And if there isn't adequate water to support that development, then we wouldn't say allow for a severance of a new lot to create a new house come forward. Any house coming forward for a building permit has to demonstrate water quality and quantity as part of their submission through a drilled well. That's a little harder for us to address on the planning side from that policy perspective, because again, you have an existing lot of record. There are individual property owners have that development right. But where we do address it is where we're creating those new lots, and in certain, like, we do have some rural subdivisions happening in our rural settlement areas where they have to provide that full hydrogeological and terrain analysis, which would look at the impacts of the proposed development on the water table and how many units could be supported.
So, for instance, like the Birds Rapids proposed development, it'll be drawing off the Oxford Aquifer.
That is my understanding, yes. They're required, when they come forward with a plan of subdivision, to provide us with a hydrogeological study and terrain analysis, which would determine what could be supported from
So what are
wells
we
and septic.
doing though, as a municipality, to find out how much the Oxford Aquifer can sustain and be drawn down? Like, so it's great that individual houses have, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. What's a collective drawdown off the Oxford Aquifer as a result? And I think that's something.
Yeah. So the conservation authorities, when they complete their water budget, they look at it at a watershed level.
They don't have that information, as far as they don't have the money to do the Oxford Aquifer analysis, like to do that drawdown, because I did a deputation last year about it.
Okay.
So that I'm asking within the planning document that you're doing, if that could be a consideration, or if that could, because the forecast, so what's the forecasted growth, Amy, for 2051 then? As of right now?
I can look up the value for you in a few seconds here, but it's over 30,000 for the entirety of North Grenville. And the plan is to accommodate a majority of that incoming growth, although we do recognize rural development will happen. We cannot stop rural development. People have lots that aren't developed, but trying to push that towards our urban area where there's services, municipal services, where they can be supported. So that the official plan policy as well, we still have to allow for development in the rural area. The intent of our growth management study is to try and accommodate that new incoming growth in our urban area.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. John, online, if you want to, you can turn your camera on if you would like, or just your audio, but feel free to ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, it's John Sobel, and I live in Birds Rapids. I wanted to follow up on the conversation about Birds Rapids with a question. Amy and the consultants this evening you've emphasized several times tonight that the new official plan that we're discussing and the North Grenville growth strategy that you've referenced several occasions will focus on promoting land use policies that are about building out growth where there are already municipal services and not in private, unserviced rural areas. And the rationale for that is that so you're not, in your words tonight, encroaching on rural land resources, which include wetlands, farmlands, and cultural heritage. So my question is, how will the language in this draft official plan concerning land use in Birds Rapids in particular ensure that there is not excessive development in our rural hamlet, which is far from municipal services and does include wetlands and farmlands and could be affected in terms of its cultural heritage? So, and to be clear, by excessive development, I mean, for example, a subdivision that might increase the population of the hamlet by, say, 50 or even 100%. How will the new official plan prevent that sort of development that tonight you've made clear you are trying to refocus towards urban centers in this new official plan?
Thanks for the question, John. And I think it kind of goes back to our ongoing discussions that we've been having recently in regards to the policies for Birds Rapids. And while I do want to recognize that Birds Rapids is a special policy area under Section 8 of the official plan, I think that's why, we highlight it, and I'm not certain as to at what time you joined the meeting, so I do apologize if you missed it. But I think some additional consultation and discussion with the consultant may be necessary in order to maybe flesh out how the policy is written and the intent of what it's trying to achieve, because I am aware of and being in some recent conversations with yourself about those policies in regards to infill and intensification. And while we may have different perspectives from a planning level and from resident perspective and how the staff have applied the policy in regards to a separate application, I think, there is merit in which we can look at the intent and spirit of the policy and what it's achieved. And I'm going back to comments made by Ms. Van Gemeren earlier this evening, not to put her on the spot, but I think there's merit in having a discussion about the concerns in regard to the policy and community vision and intent of when that came forward. So to that end, I don't think I have a clear answer for you, and I don't want to specifically start stating this is what the policy is going to say or this is how it's going to be shaped, but I think additional conversation, including Dillon Consulting in that with residents from Burritts Rapids will be key in determining what's existing and what could we look at in the future.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate that, and we definitely do look forward to having those discussions. I'll just conclude by saying that I will only speak for myself. I can't speak for the entire community, although we did have a community meeting on Sunday that 30 residents attended that was kind of discussing these questions. But just speaking for myself, I will say that I am very much in favor of your goal of focusing development where there are already municipal services and not on rural lands. And I look forward to strengthening the language in the official plan so that we can accomplish that and keep excessive development out of Burritts Rapids. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, John. We do appreciate it. We have noted it. And we thank you for your time this evening. I don't see any other questions online, and I'm not certain if there are any other individuals who are in the room who would like to come down and speak this evening.
Amy, it's Mayor Nancy here. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you, Mayor Peckford.
Okay, great. I just wanted to thank everyone who made comments this evening and also extend my thanks to you and Megan and Kai for navigating so many different questions on the official plan. And as we said in the beginning, of course, all of those comments that you've heard this evening, that Council has heard, certainly will be reflected upon. And I know you'll be bringing a report to Council within the month so that we have better clarity on the timelines for when another iteration of the draft official plan will be returning to Council. So just want to thank everyone for their time.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. And if there's no more questions, I do want to encourage individuals to stay informed through our website, but feel free, as mentioned, to reach out to the project team at that special op@northgranville.on.ca email address. I do monitor it and try to respond in a timely manner or at least acknowledge or provide those comments on. We are documenting all comments being made this evening at our previous session on March 4th, as well items that we do receive in writing. So please submit written comments. It's a fantastic way as to further identify your points. And we are compiling everything within a matrix, and all of the public comment received, we will be addressing in one way or another and providing to Council how we address those comments within the official plan review, or if comments were incorporated, it might have just been it was a question that was asked and not necessarily something that needed to be added in. So we will be providing that again as part of that fulsome package to Council later this year in May. So thank you for your time this evening. I know your time is valuable and we do appreciate the engagement that we had this evening. Have a great night.